So hi, I'm Guile, and I'm here to show you how defense works in Path of Exile. So, in Path of Exile, there are two types of life pools. You have your life and your ES pool, your energy shield pool. Chaos damage bypasses energy shield, and if your life reaches 0, your character dies. That's all there is to it. But it's really not that simple, because, most people say, like, oh, you need to get 5 bajillion life or whatever to survive, maps or something. Not entirely correct. Because there's a lot, there's a lot of ways to give yourself more effective life. So there's a lot of types of defense, for instance. So the most common type is usually referred to as Armour, which provides physical damage mitigation. So estimated physical damage reduction, blah 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 percent. But that's not it, because you don't actually need Armour to get physical damage reduction. You can use, for instance, Immortal Call to get some, or you could get endurance charges through some way, and that'll give you extra. The other type that almost everyone gets is something called Evasion. So Evasion, the more you have, the more likely you are for an enemy to miss you. So, you can just avoid attacks altogether. So that's another mechanic. But then there's, many other ways of giving yourself a bigger effective life pool, like, say, if you have Regeneration. Say you regenerate around 300 life a second, and a fight lasts for, 5 seconds. That means your effective life pool has just been increased by around 1,500 through the regeneration sources. So, you can give yourself more effective life pool through regeneration. Or, for instance, you can get more effective life pool through leech. So, say, leech is capped at 20% of your life a second. Whatever your life pool is for that type of leech. So, say you have 5,000 life, and you're constantly leeching back at the leech cap, that gives you 1,000 life leech a second. So, it's pretty hard to take over 1,000 damage a second in some scenarios. Also when you're doing a lot of damage in the same way. So, you can leech it all back to get more effective life. So instead of saying, over 5 seconds, you have another 5,000 life to take damage with. But then on top of that, you can have other sources of leech. So you can, say, have life gain on hit, which gives life back per enemy hit. But it's instant. There's no delay to it. It's not like leech. There's no cap to how much life gain on hit you can have a second. So, say you have Lightning Arrow Chain LMP with life gain on hit. You hit lots and lots and lots of times, you can get a lot of life back that way, as long as there's, the pack densities to support all those hits. But that's just, a few ways of leeching. One of the really strong ways of leeching, I think the really overpowered way, is something called Vaal Pact, which gives life leech, but it's instant. There's no delay to it. You can leech unlimited amounts of life back as long as you have the damage to cope with it. So this is a really, really simple life-based character that uses Vaal Pact. So I have Vaal Pact, I got a lot of Frenzy charges, I got the Claw Leech nodes, have Unwavering Stance, and Iron Reflexes. Take some damage. Let's find a more dangerous pack. Hit me down. The life pool is restored instantly, so take some damage, leech it all back as quickly as you can imagine, as long as you just have more damage. So now, effectively, with the Vaal Pact characters, your damage becomes your life pool. So as long as you're doing damage, you have more life. So that's just ways of leeching back life. You also have the ability to use potions. So say you have Seething Flasks. These will instantly restore a pretty decent portion of life. And if you have multiples of these, say you have 3 Seething Flasks, they each have 3 charges. But when, if you spam them all at once, that's 3,000 life back pretty much instantly. So you can restore all your life instantly. There's also health flasks that heal over time. So at the beginning of a fight, for instance, you could use one of those, and as the fight goes on, it'll be constantly healing you just like Regeneration would. But that's not it, because there's other ways of simply avoiding damage altogether. Like, say, if you grab Acrobatics. Acrobatics, you simply avoid damage. Okay, you can just simply avoid being hit, you can avoid spells. But that's also not it. There's other ways of mitigating damage, like Mind Over Matter, which allows your mana pool to become a pretty decent portion of your effective life pool. And then on top of that, you have movement speed, for instance, which is another form of defense, even though most people say it's pretty worthless. So you simply run out of combat and run away, and always kite enemies at the edge so you're never really in a bad position to take a lot of damage. So more effective positioning, for instance, is a pretty good form of defense. And then you have block on top of that, so you can get a lot of block nodes, or for instance use something like the Anvil or Bringer of Rain or Dual Wield with some other crazy uniques, and get a lot of block that way, and the block rate caps out at 75%. And if you're blocking 75% of the hits coming at you, that's effectively multiplying your life pool by 4 times. So instead of having, say, 3,000 life that this character would have, it would be treated as almost 12,000 life. The random number generator can make that not seem like it's that much, but other times you just go forever without taking a hit. And then there's other ways of multiplying your other core defenses, like Ondar's Guile gives you more than twice as much evasion. So evasion kind of drops off. There's a negative power in it for the chance you have to dodge, or chance you have to evade, but Ondar's Guile multiplies that final number by 2, so it gives you a really, really strong boost against projectile attacks. It makes you almost immune to them if you have a pretty decent amount of evasion. And then on top of that, there's other ways, so those are just things you can take off the tree. There's simple types of builds, for instance, that are just simply more defensive, like say if you're ranged, or for instance, use totems. So those, if you're ranged, you can always just stay at the edge of the pack. If you use totems, you just drop the totem in, and the totem does all the damage. So the totem just wrecks the enemy, and you don't have to do anything. You just lay the totem and run away. Totem dies, whatever. Dead totem, just make another totem, and that's it. Yeah, so that's just a style of playing that's more defensive. So you could probably get a little bit less effective life pool that way. But then you have skills on top of that. So, there are skills like Immortal Call, for instance, which simply gives you physical damage immunity. So instead of stacking armor, you could stack endurance charges and use Immortal Call to get a pretty long duration of simply being immune to physical damage, which is far, far better than endurance charges or armor, because those cap out at 90% reduction. Or, alternatively, you could just never get hit. So there's a status element called Blind, which you can get through the Blind Gem or the Smoke Mine Gem. There's a couple other ways, I think. I'm not sure. So, you can use Blind, and it gives enemies an additional 75% chance to miss any attack. So, because it's a miss, Unwavering Stance doesn't really work with it, because you cannot evade. So, whatever, it affects their accuracy against you. Even a blinded opponent will still hit a character with Unwavering Stance. It's like you ask for it or something. So, there's Blind, but then there's simply ways of reducing the number of hits enemies can even do. So, for instance, the Arctic Breath and Arctic Armor skills lay down icy ground. So, you have this ground ice, and if enemy is standing in it, they get the chill effect applied to them. And chill reduces the enemy's speed. And then on top of that, you could also stack, say, the Temporal Chains curse, which makes them move even slower. So now, they're chilled and they have Temporal Chains, so they're effectively completely disarmed. Or, instead of doing any of that, you simply freeze them entirely with something like Freeze Mine, or by getting a lot of critical hits, or getting a lot of chance to freeze with something like Frostbite, or say a Terran Shiver, or stacking a lot of crit strike chance with cold damage. So you just continuously freeze the enemy, and as long as popsicles are fighting, if you're fighting popsicles, they don't really want to fight back because they're frozen. It's a freeze. Really, really strong defense mechanism. Alternatively, you just don't fight your enemy and throw a conversion trap at them, and bam, you don't have to fight them. For a while, you can clear the other mobs around them, and then do that. Or you can just simply enhance your defense by summoning a lot of minions around you. So, say enemies are fighting a bunch of crap units around you, you don't take as much damage, you don't have to tank everything. Or you just block them off with frost walls and then kind of like snipe them over those with rain of arrows or something else, I don't know. Frost wall, really, really good defensively, if you have the types of skills that can utilize it well. So, there's those. And then there's like the last mechanic, which is called Stun. So Stun, they simply interrupts the enemy. It's not a very long duration, mind you, but if you have something like a Ground Slam Marauder or an EK build, the hits are so strong that it usually procs stuns. So with Ground Slam, you smash the ground, and like enemies walk into the Ground Slam radius, and they simply start getting stunned, and they never move again until they die. Same with Ethereal Knives. The stun is actually providing a lot of defensive power. So, as you can see, this is just how defense works. It's just life and energy shield, but that's really only the surface of it. There's a lot of ways to give yourself a lot more defense than you would otherwise think. So, I'll be covering most of this stuff in more depth, hopefully, in the next couple of videos, and I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you next time.